Good day, fellow crafters. Welcome back to the Forget-Me-Not Card Company YouTube channel. I'm Tamara, the Card Creator, and today we're going to create these fun foiling projects using a technique I saw in a video by Creations by Miss and foils from Crafty Critter. I will link both in the description box below in case you would like to follow Creations by Miss and get more inspiration. Let's dive into this project. I'm using this galaxy rainbow from Crafty Critters and a stamp from my stash. I learned this fun technique from Creations by Miss that I wanted to share with you so that it can help further your supplies as well. I love this gorgeous foiling. It's just breathtaking. So as you can see, I have my stamp on my Misty, and I'm going to ink it up very, very well with Pops of Color by scrapbook.com. You can use any sticky medium that you wish, but this was the one that was recommended by Creations by Miss. I stamped this onto my hammermill cardstock. Although you only see me do it once in this video, I actually do it twice just to make sure I have proper coverage. From there, I set it aside to sort of dry and get tacky. In the meanwhile, I'm going to work on card number 2. And with this one, I wanted to use black cardstock. I do adhere it in my Misty using removable adhesive. That way I can lift it up without any issues. I've had this Hero Arts wooden stamp for ages, absolutely ages. And I wanted to put it to good use for this creation. So with the red rubber stamps, you want to moisten it with a baby wipe. And then again, add the Pops of Color by scrapbook.com. Make sure it's thoroughly covered. And you want to move kind of quickly here because you don't want this to dry yet. Once I have it properly covered, I'm going to line it up in my Misty and stamp this twice. Again, you will only see one in the video, but I actually do this twice just to make sure I have proper coverage. Again, set it aside to dry. Now with my foil, I want to make sure it covers my creations beautifully. Once I see that, I put it into a piece of parchment paper. You could also use wax paper on this. And I put it into my heat machine. You could also use a laminator if you don't have a machine like this. Although you see me put it through once, I actually put it through twice, and I do that for each of the cards. Now for card number 2. I'm going to foil it with the Summer Breeze by Crafty Critters. I have in my mind's eye that I want to make a masculine card using this foil, so that is what I'm doing. Once my foil is cut to size, put it through my parchment paper, run it through my heat machine, and again, run it through twice. Here, Crafty Critters was so gracious to give me this white foiling toner paper. So what you do here is with your reverse of your foil, you lay it on the toner sheets. That way you have no waste. What a genius concept here. So as you can see, I lay my excess foiling onto the white, put it onto my parchment paper, and gonna run it right back through my heat machine. Again, I run it through twice. Once that's cold, look out for the big reveal. How fun is that? Now for card number 4. Same thing. I want to use the excess of that galaxy rainbow that I did the floral design on. Put it on the white. Make sure it covers everything beautifully. Put it in my wax paper. You want to make sure that that crease goes into the machine first. That's cooled for a few seconds. Now, look at that. I did notice I had a little bit of excess on the bottom. I'm going to trim that off, and I'm actually going to use that for another project where I cut out my sentiment from that. I want to clean these up just a little bit. Not sure if it's just me, but I always work in assembly style, meaning I do one thing, do the next, and then do the next until all my cards are completed. I feel like this is the best way to maximize my time. I felt as if these flowers were screaming to be in an oval shape, so that is what I did for both the foiling and the reverse foiling of this card. Then for the Summer Breeze foiling cards, I wanted these both to be a little bit on the masculine side. So I had this nesting dies from Spellbinders that I thought would be great to use for this. Now for the first foiling that I did on the black, I'm just going to adhere it to my card base with my Barely Arts liquid glue, put a couple blocks on it to let it adhere correctly. Once it's done, I'll trim it up, make sure it's perfect. For my flowers, I wanted it to have a little bit of color behind it, just so everything wasn't just so stark white. I don't know about you, but I have a hard time leaving white space. It's one of the things that I'm really working on in this year, to be okay with the white space. Here, I can't decide what color inspiration I'm most drawn to, so I play with the blue. Then I decide white is probably going to be the best, just to let that rainbow shine come through. I trimmed off the edges just to add a little bit of, dimension there, just so everything wasn't so square next to my oval. I adhere my oval with my Barely Arts liquid glue, set it on my rectangle there, put some blocks on it, and just set it aside to dry. Now, onto my sentiments. These sentiments are from Gina K and are quite a good size and definitely stand out in your card. So for me, I wanted to do a miss you, thinking of you, cheers, and a happy birthday. So again, I want to do this all at one time just to knock it out. When I put it on my hammer mill cardstock here, I want to leave enough space because I am going to emboss this, then die cut them out. So leaving enough space is critical for what I'm going to do. After I have where I feel like I'm going to have enough room for my die, I know I'm going to heat emboss this with black embossing powder. So I do use my anti-static bag, put it down very generously, and then stamp my sentiments with Versamark ink. Even though you only see me do this once on the video, I actually do this about 3 times, just to make sure I have the proper coverage. Then, onto my Brutus Monroe Raven Black embossing powder. I add this quite generously here, making sure that I have the complete sentiments covered. If I've missed any spots, I can definitely go back over, not a big deal. And if I have any excess powder, I have a designated paintbrush that I just go right in, wipe it right off. With my silicone mat under my paper, I'm ready to heat emboss. I love watching the embossing powder melt. It takes my breath away. Now that my sentiments are die cut out, I'm going to assemble. Just want to make sure that they're in the right spot so it's easy for me to follow and easy for me to adhere. I like the dimension of Altenews foam, so I use this quite liberally all over my background, just to kind of give it a little bit of dimension. When I'm ready to adhere, I pull back the tape, add a little bit of Barely Arts liquid glue, and this will give me a little bit of wiggle room should I need it, before adhering completely to my cardstock. Now that it's adhered, I'm going to throw a couple blocks on there and let it sit for just a few minutes. On to card number 2. Now, do I want this to be landscape or portrait? Sometimes these decisions can be so tricky. I felt like for this card, it could actually go either way. These sentiments were perfect for this size card. To give it a little bit more dimension, I do add some foam tape to the back of my sentiment. That way it kind of pops off the page and doesn't get lost in my foiling. The great thing about the Altenews foam is it's so easy to cut in case you need to kind of slice them in half or thinner strips. If you're like me, you don't want to have any sagging in your sentiments or your backgrounds. Now that my sentiments are covered, a little bit more Barely Arts glue after I peel the adhesive off, and card number 2 is complete. Now to card number 3, Miss You. Do you ever take a long time to decide where your sentiments are going to go? Good, I'm not alone here. I fiddled, moved it this way, that way. I couldn't decide. I cut that all part out for you just to make it a little bit easier, because I know you do not want to see where I am so indecisive. But let me tell you, I hope I picked the right spot on this. Where would you put the Miss You sentiment at? Now for card number 4, Cheers. I feel like a cheers card can go anywhere. Kind of reminds me of when I was growing up, cheers and everybody knew your name, right? Thinking of you. I felt like that was the perfect spot for that sentiment. So, no guessing there. I did not pop this sentiment up on the foam dots just because I felt as if it would take away from that beautiful foiling in this particular case. Now, on to finishing touches. I didn't want it just to be a square card, so I did have this punch, which kind of puts out these little designs on the ends of your card, and it matched my die cutting that I did earlier. Now for embellishments. I'm going to add just a couple little gems here and there to a couple of my cards, just to kind of bring everything together. When you're placing your gems, just remember to put them in a triangle shape, and also in odd numbers, so 3, 5, or 7. And a couple more gems onto this card, and we'll call it complete. Look at that beautiful foiling. Who knew you could foil just by using your pops of color? I love learning something new. How about you? Look at these beautiful cards. Let me know in the description box below which is your favorite. And are you going to try this technique? If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more crafting tips, design ideas, and fun tutorials. As always, click the bell icon so you never miss out on the latest content. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.